Namaste and welcome to this exciting episode of Sathology Debunking Mythology. Sat means truth, Logos means a study or science, Sathology means a science of truth or study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means a science of fake lie imagination or study of fake lie imagination. So one of the very important thing is all the cultures of the world, and you can refer to my book Gold, Glory and God, which is just published. And when I studied all the native cultures of the world, from South America to Europe and Asia, India, and Southeast Asia, there are three things all the natives worshipped. One is they believed in soul. Second, they believed in ancestors. Third is they believed in sun. And these are the three things common across all the literatures everywhere, except even though they may not be having a published account like a book, but they used to write, and the teachings were spread down through hearing, the parents teaching their children, and there were schools also. Like the Western world accuses them there are no schools. No, there were schools. Wherever there are children, there will be schools. The pattern of the schools may change, but schools are there. And and then we'll come to today's topic. Fire was everywhere used, and water used as for purifying themselves. Fire and water. In India, it's a big practice. In Persia, ancient Persia, they used to, Zoroastrians had fire temples. And if you look at the South America, fire was considered as God. And it was very sacred to light a fire in South America, in the entire South America. Not randomly just burn a fire, and you will not find any burning incidents much over there in South America. So today we have a very, very special topic, and I have a special guest and a friend, Shri Dipali Patwadkar. Let us welcome her.
Namaste. So, hello Aditya ji, and hello to everyone who is listening into this show. I'm happy to be back over here.
So Dipali ji, this is a common thing, sun worship, air, like the sun, Atma, and reincarnation. Very common topics. And Agni almost kept sacred, just like water. Water kept clean and Agni kept clean. In fact, I was shocked to see that in South America, before they used to go for bath, they had a prayer, just like India. Mm-hmm. And the river was considered not a place to dispose of a garbage. River was considered a place for life. So this incident of fire is also very important. It's considered fire as sacred. Right.
It's the same in India. The Manusmriti in India, it prohibits people from throwing any garbage in rivers and keeping the rivers clean. Even if you want to take a bath in the river, you should take a bath wearing your clothes. You shouldn't remove your clothes and enter the river. So this I think is common across the ancient cultures.
Very common. And even the sunbathing, like you mentioned, sunbathing, you use the river bath, but the sunbathing is also said to be you should not be naked in the sun. All the ancient South American cultures, India, everywhere, we don't go naked in the sun. And now we know the other effect of it, the skin cancer. So punishes also. Some people, they think that only the disease is the main, that's why they did not do it. That was a byproduct. The main thing was respecting sun, the source of life. That was the main reason. And anyway, it's startling. So if we're talking about the fire today, you can show your presentation and we can begin there.
Yes. So amongst the very well-known gods all across the world, not just in India, all across the world, is Agni, the fire. And today I shall speak about how Agni has been worshipped across various cultures and the different temples of Agni. So I shall start with your permission.
Yes, please, go ahead. Yes.
So in India, fire is called as Agni, and this word is you would be knowing this word from the English word like ignite. So ignite, ignition, their root is the same word Agni, which means fire. And we will just take a look at why fire is so sacred and worshipped across various cultures. So let's see what Agni is. Agni is the first friend of man. And why do we call him the friend? Because for the humans, we are speaking about the very ancient people. And these ancient people, they protected themselves from the wild animals with the help of a fire. So if they have a fire which is lit, the wild animals wouldn't come near them. So at night or even during the day, they could protect themselves with the help of fire. So fire protects. Next, it gives light at night. So these are the times when there was no electricity and the only source of light at night was the moon, and the moon is not there throughout the night. So it's always the Agni, the fire, which provides light. In winter, the fire keeps us warm. And the Agni, the fire, is also a purifier. Because if you are going to boil water on the Agni, you are going to get clean water. You are going to get pure water. Or if you are cooking your food, the fire is going to kill all the bacteria and any other parasites in that food. So Agni is a purifier. And Agni also helps to cook food. So due to all these things, like Agni is the protector, Agni is the light giver, Agni is giving warmth, Agni is purifying things for you and cooking food for you. So Agni is the best friend of man. And this is also attested by different sciences. So the science of evolution, what we see is as the humans, they started cooking their food, baking their food, boiling their food, and not just that, they were also chopping and grinding their food. So this is basically outsourcing digestion. So this process of digestion actually starts even before we eat the food. So we chop it fine and then we roast it, we bake it, we cook it. All of this makes digestion easy. So when we eat the food, the body doesn't have to spend more energy to digest the food. So what we see is this evolution. The apes, they had such big trunks because they needed very long intestines to digest the food. Now we just have slender waists. We don't need very long intestines, and all of our digestive system, it just fits in this small slender waist. It is because of Agni. It is because the humans started using fire. And it is because the humans started using fire, humans have evolved. We are what we are today because of fire. Because some ancestors, they were able to control fire. Another difference that took place because of this is the change in the jaw. The apes and the very early man, they had to chew a lot. Whatever they ate, they had to chew a lot. Mostly it was raw food. If we look at the apes today, they have to spend about 7 to 8 hours a day chewing their food. But now we don't do that. It's it's done beforehand. Even before we intake the food, it has been chopped for us. So we don't need this huge jaws. We don't need very sharp tooth. We don't need big teeth. We need a smaller jaw, less number of teeth, and smaller teeth. So this evolution, we see it in the skull of the humans. The jaw becomes smaller and the skull becomes bigger, the cranial capacity increases. And with the increase in cranial capacity, we see human evolution in terms of the capacities of brains. Everything that the human does with his brain, we see it because of fire. So, because we started using fire for cooking, what happened was we need less food. We need to spend less time in collecting food. We need to spend less time in chewing food. We need to spend lesser time in digesting the food. And thus, it frees up so much time. And this time was used by the humans in doing so many other things. Mainly, there was the development of language and the development of culture. We start seeing this as the human becomes more and more friendlier with Agni, as human becomes more and more, is able to control fire, is able to use fire. We see this evolution happening in the humans. So slowly we see that this best friend, Agni, the best friend, fire, becomes the god. And we see that fire is the god in various cultures all across the world, whether it is in North America, whether it is in South America, whether it is in Europe or South Africa, or whether it is in Asia. So here is the Greek goddess Hestia. She is the goddess of hearth and fireplace and altar. So this is the fire goddess of Greece, of the Greek culture. In the Roman culture, the goddess Hestia came to be known as Vesta. She was the goddess of fire, and there were temples of this goddess all across the Roman Empire. And this picture that you see over here, this is the temple of Vesta from Rome. And this temple used to house the fire itself. It was the holy fire which was kept alive for centuries together. The Persians, they also worshipped the fire god, and the Persian fire god is called as Athar or Atash. There are these words in Hindi, for example, Atishbaji, which means fireworks. It comes from the same word, Atash, which is the fire god of Persians. And this picture that we see over here is a temple of the fire god, and this is a temple from Mumbai. This temple is called as Agyari. Again, Agyari comes from the word Agni, and Agyari means it is the temple of fire. Another word that is used for a temple of fire is Atashgah. So Gaha is Gruha, is home, and Atash is fire. So Atashgah is the home of fire god. So this is the Persian fire temple. This is the Hindu god of fire, who is called Agni. And Agni is described in so many ways. He is said to have 7 arms. 7 arms are his 7 flames. So he is also called Sapta Jivha, Sapta Hastasya. 7 arms he has, and he has 2 heads, and he is a very powerful god. The first Rucha of the very earliest, the most ancient texts of the humans is the Rigveda. And the first Rucha, the first mantra, the first verse of this Rigveda is to the god Agni. It says, Agni me purohitam yajnasya devam ratvijam hotaram ratnadhataram. It praises the Rishi, the poet. He praises the god Agni, saying that this divine Agni is the priest of gods, and he is the one who is the supreme provider of all the treasures. What are the treasures of human? Food, water, and lastly, language. Subhashita, it is said, the uh, the wealth of vidya, the knowledge, that is the wealth of humans, and this wealth is given by Agni. So Agni is the most ancient god and has the first god that has been worshipped all across the world, all by all the cultures. So there is the Agni Devata, the Agni god, and this god is worshipped by various priests. So we'll take a look at these priests of Agni. From Rome, we saw the Temple of Vesta from Rome, and at this Temple of Vesta, there was a fire which was tended by the priests, and these priests were the Vestal Virgins. There were actually many priestesses. The women, they were responsible for maintaining this fire. And it was their responsibility to ensure that the fire continued to burn. It did not get extinguished. And the Romans believed that as long as this fire was burning in the Temple of Vesta, the Roman Empire would be showered with fortunes. And when this fire would get extinguished, it was rather like, if and when this fire would get extinguished, the Roman Empire would be finished. And this is exactly what happened. It was sometime during the 4th century that this temple was destroyed. The fire in this temple was extinguished, and that was the beginning of the end of the Roman Empire. It just so happened. So these are the priestesses of fire from Rome. And this concept of having priestesses to ignite the fire continues even today. The Olympic Games, which is a continuation of the Greek culture. And in these games, what is done is the torch of Olympics is taken all over the world. All the countries that are going to participate in the games, they will carry this torch. This torch is ignited by the Greek woman, and it is a very ancient ceremony which is re-enlived every time. So every time the Olympics are going to start, a fire will be ignited with the help of the rays of sun, and the torch will be ignited, and this will be the beginning of the Olympic Games for every year. So this is a very old tradition which is reenacted every time. Amongst the Persians, the priests of fire, they are called as Atharvan. So it's a name very similar to the Sanskrit Atharva word, and in the Indian context, Atharva was a Rishi who was one of the Rishis who wrote the Atharva Ved. So here the Parsi priest is called as Atharvan, and he takes care of the fire in the Agyari. So there are many fire temples in India of the Parsis, and the fire it has been burning over there for a couple of centuries, more than actually since the 7th century. Since the 7th century, these fires, they are still burning. Amongst the Hindus, there was this clan of people who were called the Agnihotri, and they used to maintain the fire. What is this need? Like we see all these people, they are obsessed with keeping the fire burning. And the reason for this is it was very hard to create fire. In the olden days, in the ancient days, when there were no matchboxes, when there were no lighters, it was very hard to create fire. They would have to use sticks, they would have to use stones to create fire, and it was a very long process. So to save that, there were people who would maintain the fire, who would maintain the fire for days together. They would not let it get extinguished. And this was the place where people from all the community will go and bring fire for their work, for their own use. And that is why we see all these people, like the people in Rome, the people in Persia, the people in India, who maintained fire. So the Hindus who maintained fire, who maintained the Agni, they were called as the Agnihotri. And they had this fire in their homes day and night. They would keep it burning. So Agni, another Agni is not only a god, but later on what we see is Agni becomes the carrier of sacrifices. Agni takes the sacrifices to the respective gods. All these gods who are in the heavens, who are in the skies, to them, the Agni will take the smoke and the smell of everything that is offered into it. So this is the concept that we see amongst so many cultures. For example, here is a Japanese ceremony. It is called Goma ceremony, and this takes place in many of the Japanese temples. There, in this Agni, in this fire, some sacrifices are given. And these sacrifices are, of course, for the gods. So this is the Japanese ceremony from the Far East. Here is a Persian ceremony. Before we move ahead, I'll just speak about the word Gom. The word Gom comes from the word home. And this is again a Sanskrit word which goes hand in hand with Yajna. It goes hand in hand with Havan. Home Havan is Yajna. So this word Gom is very much connected to home. In Persia, or today not in Persia, but in India, because all the Persians who continue to follow their culture, they live in India. And that is why the Persians in India, they are called Parsis. So the Parsis in India, they continue to do this fire sacrifice. And this is called as Yasna. This word Yasna is very similar to the word Yajna. And again, what they are doing is same. They are offering sacrifices in this fire. So this happens for various ceremonies that the Parsis conduct, not only in their temples of fires, but also when, like, they have some ceremonies at home. Like, for example, like, house warming ceremony at home, they will have a fire and they will give sacrifices in this fire. And all such ceremonies are called as Yasna. Amongst the Hindus, this is called as Yajna. It's a very ancient ritual. And in this ritual, there are various sacrifices which are given in the fire. So these sacrifices are like butter, milk, things like that, which are offered to the Agni. And Agni will take the smoke and the smell of these sacrifices to those devata, to those gods for whom that sacrifice has been given. So this is the fire worship, or rather the yajna from Hindus. So we come to the next interpretation about Agni. So far we were looking at Agni as God, but Agni also gives light. And this, so many words we will see, they are connected to the word light. For example, light by itself, it means brightness. It means that which radiates. It also means that which makes things visible. We see things, we understand things because of light. So light gives knowledge. And that is why light is also considered as knowledge in the Indian context. The words the English words like, light, illumination, luna, which means moon, and lunar, which means everything that is connected to the moon, or the words like lux, which is used for measuring the intensity of light, and Lucifer, that is Satan, or basically the shining morning star, Venus. All of these words, they come from the same root as the Sanskrit word rochate. From rochate comes r becomes l, and from that come all these words. So rochate is that which shines, and from that come these words light. One more thing about light is, as I said, it also means knowledge. Light means, we use this word in English also in a phrase like, if we don't understand something, we say, can you throw more light on this? Throwing more light on it is giving more explanation about it, telling more about it, giving knowledge about it. So light and knowledge, they go hand in hand. So whenever we speak of fire, whenever we speak of light, the Hindus, they are also speaking about knowledge. So even a small diva is a small lamp. So even a small diva, what it does is it dispels darkness. So it is also dispelling ignorance. It is giving knowledge, it is giving light, it is giving warmth, and it also gives hope. So even a small diva does all of this. A small light, a small lamp does all of this. And now, as you know, it's winter is coming. The months of November and December are very near. This is the time when there is less light. There is less sunlight in the northern hemisphere. There is less warmth. The nights are longer. And these are the times which can become very gloomy. And they can also give depression to so many people. This is the time when people in very cold regions, they will put on lamps which give light like the sunlight. They will put on lamps which give yellow colored light and keep them, away from depression. So the Hindus, what they celebrate during this time of the year is the festival of Diwali. This is the time when the mornings, the early mornings and the nights, they will be decorated with rows of small diva, with rows of small lights, lamps, oil lamps, to dispel of all this darkness, to dispel the anxiety and depression which comes with long nights, and to keep our hearts full of hope. So Diwali is the celebration which is coming soon, next week. So for the whole week, we will be celebrating Diwali, and I wish you all a very happy Diwali, a very prosperous new year, and a great time ahead. Thank you.
Wonderful presentation, very clear. And so one question which usually comes up with the Agni has been practically ignored by all the Western academics, theologians, church, mosque, everyone has excluded Agni. In fact, in most of the Abrahamic faiths, they always mock Hindus that they are burnt. Their bodies are burned, Hindus and Buddhists both. And if you add Hindus and Buddhists, then they become the largest dharmic group in the world, even today, almost 3 billion people. And but the Abrahamic faith, they detest Agni, but they eat food cooked in fire, but they don't like the fire in religious way. What is the reason for that, according to you?
Somehow I feel like, the Abrahamic religions, they made they thought of all the cultures as their enemies, and then all the friends of their enemies became their enemies. So fire was the friend of all the cultures. Somehow this fire became the enemy, and that is why we see the hell described in Christianity as a place which is a place of fire. So they speak of, like, burn in hell. So that is the kind of association with fire in the Abrahamic religions. So the same is also with Islam. And I guess, like, they just went away from nature. They went away from nature because probably they just had one God, and all the rest of the gods were the gods of nature. So maybe that is why this happened.
Yeah, and
And
see, most of the Indians do not understand the terms like shamanism, animism, and anyone who doesn't understand must read my last book, Gold, Glory, and God, because I have tackled all these different terms. Now, all these different terms actually refer to dharmic cultures. So, and I see Indian media personalities using this term, like there's a one famous anchor on the Beyond News, and I know she was reading a script, so I don't blame her for anything personally. But she was talking about shamanism as a very negative thing. Oh, the cultural shamanism, and the word shamanism itself is a negative word itself. Like, if you do not understand the word, sometimes I request people that do not speak those English words if you don't understand them, because it is a very, you are actually subconsciously supporting the same colonial mindsets. Colonial, I say the mindsets because the skin may be brown, but the thought is a church driven thought process. And that's how the English language is. So many words have been created and introduced that subconsciously we speak their language. Like the demigod. Demigod is a very negative term. Demigod means anyone which is not Christian is a demigod, secondary. So that's how they taught to the Indian schools also, Indian people also. Now, so shamanism is, and animism, pantheism, they all refer to Sanatana Dharma cultures. So they have, so when a child grows up in their culture, it's not that he begins hate of Hindus. It's by design he's programmed from birth that he will not accept dharmic principles. So it takes a longer time for us to crack it. And that's my contest. That's my really an appeal to the Western academics also who are watching, that we need to be conscious of these words. You need to see where they came from. Like when people oppose critical race theory and wokeism, I said the wokeism is a movement, and the critical race theory, to remove all colonial traces from the language and the culture of the West. They, now people in India, the Indian English speakers are, I would say, so naive that they are now bringing these concepts here, like the Indian cricket team kneeling down on BLM protest. They don't even understand what is a BLM protest. The kneeling down is good. I personally support, but the Indian context is totally outside. What happened to blacks in USA, what happened to the natives in USA is a very deplorable act. And we must, all of us need to stand for it. But an Indian cricket team sitting in Dubai, kneeling down for BLM, looks like a monkey. The entire team looks like a monkey. What do you have to say on these colonial mindsets we have?
Yeah, this colonial thinking, I think wherever the Europeans were ruling during the colonial times, they left behind all these thoughts and ideas, and it is going to take time for all of them to come out of it. So it is not just like, decolonization at the level of the material level, but decolonization at the level of mind is so important. Decolonization at the language level, that is also so important and so necessary. Amongst the other things that you mentioned earlier was cremation of dead bodies. And you mentioned that, it is the Hindus and Buddhists who cremate the dead body, they put it in fire. But it is also the Greeks used to do the same. So it's something like, it is a tradition which the Europeans forgot. The European original tradition is also cremating the bodies, and that is probably the most ecological action, because by burying the dead bodies and creating graves, acres and acres of land uh, is being put to use to just bury the bodies, and we don't even know what kind of impact it has, what kind of ecological impact it has, of having so many dead bodies uh, in the ground. So how does it affect the food that we are growing? How is it uh, affecting all other things? We, even the underground water, we don't know. So this is something that needs to be looked at from the scientific perspective, from ecological perspective. This is what I think.
No, even in the Ramayana also, Virad is buried. Virad. Sri Ram,
Mhm.
Lakshman digs the grave of Virad, and which was buried. And he says very important thing that the Rakshasa are generally buried. So the if you make another point on the another aspect of the fire, which is very very negative connotations in the Western media, is the fire. Now, most of the precious metals in the world are made through fire. Like the gold is polished through fire, and most important chemical processes involve fire. Very important and very delicate also. It's like if you don't manage the fire, it can destroy things.
Yeah.
Therefore, not only scientifically we have to manage fire, but the respect must be given to Agni or fire, because the extent of power that it has. Just like we respect the wind, we respect wind tremendously. Like when the moment the wind is high, the ships don't go out in the ocean, or they
Mhm.
skip. Airplanes, they change their path, they don't come in the path of a hurricane. But the same way, the fire has to be respected. Now it is a commonsensical principle. It's not just religious principle, but it's a commonsensical also. These devtas, they are to be respected for what they are. And if you do not do that, it puts us in danger also. Now, in the you mentioned about the Greeks, and I also mentioned the Franco tribes, the Germanic tribes, the old Romans, the Celtics, and the Irish, the old and the ancient Irish, ancient Scottish. Everyone burned their bodies. Everybody. Now, it was stopped by the Catholic Church by declaring a papal bull. Again, a papal bull comes into the picture. That papal bull was declared that yes, it has to be stopped. Any kind of worship, demigod worship, has to be stopped. And I also mentioned sometime back in last show, it's also in my last book, Gold, Glory, and God. The Sarai Kali, Durga was worshipped everywhere. Anahita, Anna, Ishtar, and anyway, all these things,
Nana.
Nana, like
Yeah.
Nana, which is all mentioned there, and they were all deities. Common name is so shocking. The same name is used in entire South America. Same name is used in Africa. Same name used in Europe, and same name is in India, including Middle East. In fact, it is said Allah had three daughters. One of them was Inanna. And again, all these things are mentioned there, but people, I don't know what to say, that you cannot have so many coincidences. You cannot have so many coincidences at the same type of worship, same form, literally, like the Attashula Prahane, Khadag Khetag Dharini. Exactly, this line is Inanna's body. That she has 8 arms, she's holding 8 weapons, and she's standing, and she's the mother of fertility. Janani, Jambini, Mohini, very different names of Durga are there. So, isn't this time to go back and search our roots? Now we have internet, we have America, a lot of Americans there. It's time for us to go back to our roots and see what our ancestors believed in. Isn't that true?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because if everybody starts to look at the main question for every person is who am I? Finding our identity, and people try to find that identity. The first step is to find that identity through history. And when one starts looking at what our ancestors were, what they did, what was their philosophy, how they lived, all of these questions will give the answer to the question, who am I? And this is one of the most important questions every person must ask oneself. And the first step is to find out what the ancestors did, whom they worshipped, what were their philosophies, what were their different gods. This, I think, is the first step.
Thank you so much, Deepali ji. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. And for the viewers who are watching it, do comment on YouTube channels and let us know your feedback. Namaste. Thank you.
Namaste.